Welcome back, everybody. I'm at my dad's house for a couple days, and some people have asked me about my little fleet. Well, here it is. I'm going to start with the first piece of equipment that I got. This is an Adams 666 motor grader. I picked this one up. It belonged to the local flying club, and back in the late 90s, I found it sitting behind their hangar with trees growing through it, and talked to the president of the flying club, asked if I can get it going because I always had an interest in these old machines. And I did cut all the trees down and I did get it going. It's got a Cummins engine in it. Normally these used to come with a Detroit diesel engine, but they did have the Cummins option, which is what this one has. I don't know what exactly engine this is. It's got a PT fuel pump on the other side. I'll just go around and show you. And it used to belong to the province of British Columbia Highways Department back when they were still government, before they privatized everything and had contractors come in. And they obviously took some pretty good care of it, and they equipped it with this rollover protection and a cab, which they normally never came with. And it also had a snow wing on it, which I took off because A, I don't need it, and B, it had a hydraulic leak in one of the cylinders deep inside. I do have the wing still, I just haven't fixed it or anything, and I don't really need it. And yeah, long story short, I ended up striking a deal with them to take this machine with me, and I put some batteries in it, drove it home, and I've put it to use a few times. It is a running machine. It hasn't run in a couple of years, but it does run. The only problem right now with it is I think there's a seal gone in one of the hydraulic pumps, because what happens is the hydraulic fluid empties itself into the gearbox up front. I'll show you here. This is not a hydraulic drive or a hydraulic machine. It does have hydraulic power steering and it needs hydraulics for this gearbox here, but all the blade and everything is all rack and pinion. But there's these two hydraulic pumps up on the front here. I don't know how well you can see them in there, but they're there, kind of down there. And what I suspect is going on is one of them, the seal's blue, and it's filling the gear case here up with hydraulic fluid, and then the power steering quits working, and I don't have any power assist or anything like that. The rack and pinions for the blades still move and all that, but the power steering itself quits working, and it is damn near impossible to steer without power steering. But other than that, the machine actually works really well. I've done a bit of grading with it. One of the things I keep having issues with, because of how long it's sat, is the fuel tank is full of crap and the filters always plug up. And I can run it for a couple hours and then it's game over because the fuel filters plug up. I'll show you inside here. This version of grader, it came with two options for transmission. It had the standard transmission option and the power flow, and this one here is the standard transmission option. The power flow is basically got a torque converter and whatnot, and you only have one transmission stick, and you don't have a clutch. You have what's called a ground speed control and a power shift something or other. I can't remember. And you can see that this had the province of British Columbia motor vehicle inspection and whatnot. Then these two controls here are for the wing. This is your left blade lift. This is your circle, so it turns your blade left and right. This here shifts the circle to the left and right, so you can move the blade left and right. This here is the front wheel lean, and then this is the right side of the blade up and down. Then over here you got a throttle, and then you got two transmissions here. This is your, I don't know if this here is your main transmission or what you would call it, but it's got your reverse, creeper gear, low and high, and then this here is gears 1 through 4. And if you put her in creeper gear and first gear, does it ever go slow? You can get out, stand beside it, have your coffee, and it'll move about 30 feet by the time you drink all your coffee, and then you can climb right back in it. But man, does it have a lot of torque. The cab, it's quite roomy, does have a heater in it, and at the flying club there, they used it to plow the snow on the runway, which I did a couple winters as well, because here we can get quite a bit of snow. But in the last little while, obviously it hasn't been used, and I've been up north there at my house for so much I don't really have time to deal with these things. But she's here, she's safe, she's in a good home, and when I get around to it, I'm going to take those pumps off and see if I can't find the problem with it and go from there and try and fix it. And then my initial plan was to always restore this machine because it's actually in really good shape. And I might just do that one day yet, but I'll need a nice shop for that, which my little garage that I'm doing my D2 in right now doesn't quite have the room for it. There's a view out the back. Got a bit of moss growing on it, but one of the things I do have to do here in the near future is build some kind of a shed to put my machinery under. This being one of them. The next thing that needs to go under there is my Heine Warner excavator. I bought that one back in 2010. I picked it up. The gentleman who owned it had passed away, and the machine was actually scheduled to go for scrap. Somebody had told his widow that they would buy the whole lot, and then they never showed up and picked them up. And then I happened to come along, probably just in the nick of time, and I made her an offer, and this machine, along with my two 977Hs, joined my collection. This is a Heine Warner C12 HD hydraulic excavator, and there's my 977 that we'll cover here in a minute. This one comes with the Detroit 453 engine. This is also a runner, and this actually is the easiest starting Detroit I've ever seen. This one, it just likes to run. I'm probably going to fire it up here while I'm here. What I'm going to do is take the cover off the valve train there and make sure that the rack isn't stuck, because the last time I ran it, initially the rack I think was stuck because it started to rev up, and then all of a sudden something went click and then the governor started to work. So before I fire this machine up again, I'm gonna make damn sure that that rack isn't stuck, because I don't need a runaway Detroit. And those of you who know about Detroits, you'll know about the runaway situation. But those of you who don't, these Detroits are sometimes notorious for running away, which means they rev up uncontrollably because the rack gets stuck or for other reasons. So they have an emergency shutdown on the other side where the air intake is, which on this machine it does work, but it's not hooked up to anything in the cab. Plus the electrical system is pretty much non-existent on this machine, so the only thing I have electrical on it is the starter, which is a little button right here. So put the battery, goes right there, and then you fire it up from back here. It does have one wire going up to the front, which is still hooked up to the boost on the controls, and I'll show you that here in a second. So here is the operator's cab on this machine. It's pretty Spartan, but for what it is, this is actually a fairly well-equipped model as far as all the options go. This one here has the triple hydraulic pump in the back. I'll show you guys that shortly. But this is where you run her from, and it's not like a modern excavator. So if you're used to running a modern excavator, you're gonna have to reprogram your brain to run this thing. So I'll just climb up in there with you and give you a view. I did have a video somewhere along the way that I took way back when. Somebody asked me for a video on how the controls work. I just kind of briefly showed it. So what you have here is, it's actually a pretty narrow cab. Not much elbow room, but windows are out of it right now. Here you got a good view of the engine and whatnot. There's the hydraulic tank. It's got a massive hydraulic tank on it. It's probably a 70-gallon tank. And then there's the other end of the Detroit diesel. And it's actually not bad as far as noise goes for the Detroits. A couple hoses down there I just replaced. But yeah, hang on. Sorry guys, phone ring. So yeah, this is all mechanical controls, and then to the hydraulics, there's a swing motor there and a swing gearbox. And then it does the HD, and the C12 HD stands for hydraulic drive. So it does have hydraulic drive, but as you can see down there, it's not that much more modern than an old steam shovel or friction drive machine, because it does still have, there's a bunch of gears and stuff, a great big gearbox down there with a hydraulic motor on it, and it still has the chain and sprocket drive to drive the actual tracks. And then my machine here, it's set up with a log grapple. You probably can't see it very well back there in all the weeds, but there's a log grapple on the end of it. And this machine is very adept at lifting logs. It's actually really strong. It's about a 120 size machine to compare it to a normal modern machine, but it's very strong. And I've only ever used it as a log loader because it's just been really handy around the mill for that. And then as one of the options on this machine, you actually had 3 settings for the boom. So you just repin the boom cylinder for high lift, medium lift, or low lift. And right now with the log grapple, it's set up to lift as high as it can. And it'll lift probably a good 15, 20 feet or more with the grapple on the end. And It's not the fastest machine, but it does work, and it works great. It's strong. It does pretty much almost everything a modern excavator will do. It just didn't cost me near as much. And yeah, when I picked it up, it blew a couple hydraulic hoses. I've replaced a couple here, a bunch of them actually. They got these reusable hydraulic fittings here. And I got some bulk hydraulic hose at a sale one time. And you just make new ones as they go. I've been trying to proactively fix them before they pop. And there's a couple down there, little ones that I just finished replacing. I should have made a video on that, but I forgot to. But yeah, we'll go back to the controls here. So right here is the throttle for the engine. Back here is the shutdown and the emergency shutdown. And the emergency shutdown is not hooked up right now, but I should probably fix that at some point. You got your gauge cluster right here. There's a fuel gauge, water temperature gauge, which is obviously wrong. And then an oil pressure gauge here, which I don't believe works either. And then you got a switch here for I don't know exactly what, and then a starter button. Then the controls themselves, you have your travel controls here, which is these two hand levers, and they detent to whatever position you leave them in. Why they did that, I don't know, but they did. So you can detent them in reverse, neutral, and forward, both sides. I don't know if I really like that feature or not, but I think they probably did it because this thing takes its time when it travels. So that way you're not holding your control the whole time. Then here, the left foot opens and closes the grapple, or if you had a bucket, it would run the bucket on this machine. So forward to open it and back to close it. The right foot is the stick. So you push this pedal forward and the stick goes out. You pull the pedal backwards, stick comes in. The left lever here is the swing, and it's push left, pull right. So basically how these old machines are set up, if you have a right-hand cab, you push the stick, the machine will go left. You basically move the stick in the direction you want to go. So if you push it, you push yourself forward. You pull it, you pull yourself back. So push left, pull right. And then the right side lever is the boom up and down. So you push it forward, your boom goes down. You pull it backwards, your boom goes up. And then you got these buttons on the end here. This one here is gone, but this is a power boost button. And what it does is it will give you a lot more flow. It combines the flow from two pumps to go together, and you have a fast boom up or a fast stick out or in. I can't remember which is which. I've never used them because I don't even know if they work. But regardless, that's what they had there. And it takes, like I say, it takes some brain reprogramming if you've never used this kind of machine to make it work. But it works great, and when you do get the hang of it, it actually makes a lot of sense because you have something for each hand and each foot. And then it still has the old flat crawler pad or crane type undercarriage, which you can see here. And then this is actually one of the track rollers. This one's come off, and I took it out from underneath so it doesn't jam up. And then it's covered in moss and stuff, but it is still a working good undercarriage. And this has got pads pinned together. It doesn't have separate rails and bushings and pins. It just does that, has that. But it works. And this machine also didn't have travel or track tensioner mechanisms. Heine Warner used to be big into making bottle jacks and car jacks and whatnot like that, power porta powers, that sort of thing. And what they had when you bought this machine, you would get a kit with it, and then they had a porta power thing that you would stick in here, a cylinder where this thing is, somebody's welded that in there, and you would just use your porta power to push the tracks forward. And then you would add shims back here behind this tumbler, and then that would keep your track tight. But back in the day, you were able to grease all the carrier rollers. They all still turn, and this machine is also new enough that it doesn't have a hook roll turntable anymore. It actually has a proper Rotec, which is really nice, and this Rotec's actually still good and tight. This machine's actually in really good shape, other than it hasn't ran in a little while, and it's been sitting outside. Let me see if I can open this back door here and show you guys. Well, it won't open right now, but this has the 3 separate hydraulic pumps. You could see them there through the gate, through the grating here on the side. And that was an upgradable option, and it's got a disconnect clutch on the back of the engine. There's a lever back there, maybe you can see it, and you can disconnect the clutches or disconnect the pumps from the engine. That way you're not running the pumps if it's really cold or something like that, or you need to run the engine just for maintenance purposes. And then it's got 3 control valves buried down in there somewhere. and that divides up your hydraulic flow from your 3 different pumps, so you can run a couple different functions at once. And then if you do want to boom up really fast, there's that valve there where you can push the button on the end of the lever, and it combines the flow from the 2 pumps into one system or one circuit, and then you get double the flow, and then that way it moves a lot faster. Fuel tank is up in here. And then we come around this side. You can see here where the 3 hoses that feed the 3 hydraulic pumps are. There's a bit of a view. It's got a Funk 3-pump drive on it. And yeah, it works really good. And there was another machine, or another option on this machine that you could get where it would have the 3 pumps stacked on top of one another. So it wouldn't have the 3 separate pumps. And I actually like this system a little better. If you ever have a problem with one of the pumps, you can just take it off. You don't have to take the whole entire thing off. And these are all off-the-shelf parts, more or less. They're commercial shearing pumps, which were back in the day readily available. And all the lines are reusable hydraulic fittings. So if you do ever have an issue or blow a hose and you have some hose laying around like what I do, you just go into the shop, make a new one, and get right back to work, which I think is actually not a bad idea. But with modern day machines, the pressures and stuff that they're running, it becomes a lot more difficult to run, make your own fittings and stuff like that, because they have to be pretty tolerant of high pressure. So that is my Heine Warner C12 HD, and then beside it is my absolute favorite machine ever. This is the Caterpillar 977H, hence my YouTube handle 977H Logger, because I use this machine for logging. This hydraulic winch on the back is Gearmatic hydraulic winch. I haven't found a tree I can't pull with it yet. And I'm gonna show you guys in another video here where I try to start this machine. Didn't go quite as planned, but you'll see that in the other video. This machine here, I picked it up from the same place I got the Heine Warner. It's a 1964, this one, serial number 53A4922. It's got a D333 Caterpillar engine in it, turbocharged, and it sounds absolutely beautiful. And this machine has a ton of power for what it is. I'd never run a track loader before I had this machine, and when I first got it, I was just impressed with it. And to this day, I absolutely love this machine. And to me, it's a kind of a Swiss Army knife of machines. It's a jack of all trades. It does basically everything that you ever want a machine to do. If you need to dig a hole, you can. If you need to load a truck, you can. If you need to push something, you can. If you need to pull something, you can. Modern day excavators are pretty much the go-to machine, but before they had those, this is what was on every construction site. And it is very versatile. I mean, it won't do everything that a modern excavator will do very well, but it will do it. So if I need to dig a basement, I can dig a basement. If I need to go dig out a tree stump, I can dig out a tree stump. If I need to load a truck, I can load a truck. And the other thing this will do is carry material some distance. And it's got I think it's a 2.5 yard bucket on it with teeth. And it carries a fair bit of material, and it'll lift a lot. It's a pretty heavy machine, weighs about 40,000 pounds, rough guess. And it's got the heavy duty brush guarding on it. And I did have a tree fall on it one time while I was working with it, and it didn't hurt it at all. The other thing somebody did is they put some of this crusher screen on the outside of it. And it is a good idea to keep you safe from branches and stuff whacking you. But if you were to ever roll the machine over on the left side, you'd be trapped. So I'm probably going to end up taking some of that back off at some point, just because, I mean, I've never rolled the machine, but one time I was pushing a tree over and the root ball came up and it lifted the right side of the machine up and it felt like I was going over. So I managed to back out of there before it even went over. And looking back, it wasn't that bad, but it sure didn't feel good at the time. But so I'm going to probably take that mesh off of there just in case. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this machine because we will get it up and running here in another video. And then I will take you guys, I guess that's pretty much the rest of my fleet. I have another one of these 977Hs. I'll take you guys to see that, as well as my Hitachi excavator. But that's a different part of the property, so I'll take you guys over there shortly. And then I may have a video where I use this machine here. There was a video I did a little while back on a John Deere 2010 crawler dozer with a backhoe. That is mine now. and I have to go get it at some point. I may or may not have time to do that while I'm here this time, but if I do, I'll definitely take you guys along. This will be the machine we use to go get it. We do have some trees that have to come out and down, and I'm going to use that for that as well. There is a little issue I have to repair, which is in the other video that I started. That'll be coming out here within the next couple of days. And then once we have that fixed, we'll put this machine to work a little bit before it's time to head back north. So here we are at the other end of the property. And here is my other 977H that I bought together when I bought the first one. This is a slightly older machine, and it looks in worse shape, but it is actually in just as good a shape as the other one. The tracks are not the greatest, but they're a lot better than what I had. What I had was, actually this one here had a really nice undercarriage on it. And then I was on a job with the other machine, which had very bad tracks, and I actually broke one of the tracks on that machine. So when I got this one here, it wasn't running very well, and I robbed the tracks off of it, and I thought I would make a parts machine out of this. But it's actually almost in better mechanical condition than the other machine, especially now that I've repaired the engine. There was a video on my channel of how I did repair this engine. It was just a bunch of photos, really. But basically, one of the pistons had melted because somebody put injectors for a D353 cat engine in it. And the D333, of course, they physically fit, but they're the wrong ones. And the transmission is really good and crisp in this machine. The turbo was just recently replaced, and recently is relative, but it was replaced not that long ago. At some point, somebody did some welding and stuff on the bucket curl arms here, but they seem to have done a good job, and they've held up quite well. This machine, it's a year older. It's a 1963, and it was produced just before the serial number break where they switched to pedal steering. So this is still a lever steer machine. It is power shift and all that good stuff, but it is lever steer, which it makes you a lot busier when you're running the front end loader. Now, the problem with this machine that I have is I don't have a bucket on it, and it came without a bucket because when I bought it, it wasn't running very good. It was running, but it wasn't running great. So I'm assuming the gentleman who had it just was going to use it as a parts machine, but it does have a couple of things that the other machine doesn't have. One of the things is the segmented sprocket segments, which is awesome when you want to replace them. They're a little bit worn, but they're still good. And like I say, the tracks on this machine were phenomenal, and I put them on the other machine. And then I got this set of tracks used from a gentleman down in Spokane, Washington, and they're actually in good shape yet too. So this is also a running machine. I just have to find some time to modify the bucket that I do have, which is sitting right there, to make it fit this machine. That one came from an Alice Chalmers crawler, so the mounts are different, but a couple, probably a good day or two with the welder, and it'll be good to go. And this machine doesn't have any attachment on the back. It did have some counterweights at one point, but they're no longer there. But I'd like to either find a winch or maybe a backhoe I can put on the back of this machine. But it's a little dirty and a little bit rusty. Doesn't have the ROPS guarding like the other machine does. It just has a rain roof. But overall, this machine is actually in very good condition. It's, like I say, tight and crisp, and the transmission shifts really well. I'm probably going to see if I can get this one running here while I'm here this time as well, and just to drive it around and get it warmed up and oil flowing again. But other than that, yeah, it's a good machine, just missing the bucket. And then behind this machine is my Hitachi EX200-2 road builder that I bought from user Skadill. If you guys like old machinery and stuff like that sitting out in the bush, he is the man. Go check out his channel. It's called Skadill, and he's got all sorts of neat videos of machinery and whatnot. He's probably featured my machines on there once or twice as well. This Hitachi, I picked it up a number of years ago from him. It had a blown computer at the time, and before he bought it, somebody had gone in there and made an absolute mess of all the wiring. So there's a video on my channel how I replaced all that and got it working again. And this has been an absolutely great machine ever since. We've used it for countless hours, clearing, loading, digging, whatever. It's been a great machine. It's got a a thumb on there. It's got a strange, I've never really seen a 3-prong tooth bucket, but it's very heavy duty. Everything about this machine is heavy duty. It's got a special high and wide undercarriage. There's a good 2.5–3 feet of clearance under there, so you can drive it around over stumps. It also has a high-rise cab, so you're up there a ways, but you got good visibility when you're loading trucks. And at one point, I think this thing was also equipped with a heel grapple. You can see it's got some extra hydraulic line pieces there on the boom. They've been since removed, and all that's left is the thumb. But one day I'm going to try and find a heel grapple for this machine, because my friend Brock has one on his, and it works amazing for logging with. But yeah, this machine, can't say anything bad about it. It's in good shape. Right now, the hydraulic oil cooler has a leak, so we can't run the machine, and the tracks are pretty much worn out at this point in time. So if anybody happens to have a set of rails for an EX200-2, let me know. I could be interested in them. These ones here, a bunch of the bushings are broken and whatnot. They're not exactly very worn, but it's got the wide track pads on it, and I don't know if they're maybe a little bit too wide for a machine that works in rock all the time, and they've just taken their toll on the track and busted out a bunch of the bushings, but otherwise it's actually in decent shape. And it's got an extra fuel tank up on the counterweight and lots of brush guarding. The brush guarding on this side has been removed, but it's there on the other side. And once I rewired it and put a new computer in it, the machine operates perfectly again. It's in good shape. There's a couple cracks on the boom, but those have to get dealt with here before we can do too much with it. But overall, I'm really happy with the machine, and for what it is, I can't complain. And the high and wide undercarriage and the extra high to the cab, for what I do with it, it's actually perfect, because it makes a great logging machine. And like I was saying, I'm gonna try and find a heel boom grapple for it. I do have an old heel boom grapple laying around in the back 40 here, but it's too small for this machine. It would probably work good on my Heine Warner. So that about rounds out my fleet. And yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.